And this is something
Okay,
else I wanted to ask you, like
sure.
that came up late after I made this list. Like, so I sent this tweet. You comment on it. Last time I checked, it had 250,000 views, and I comment on I kind of express my emotions after seeing the most terrible video that I've seen. So I wanted to ask you on from your side, like what was the worst thing that happened on the on October 7th? Because I admit that I'm less confronted by that, you know.
So I mean,
So
I
so
personally
so so
I
what
have
was the
not looked
worst
at.
that happened there? Like what shocked you there on that day? This girl shocked me incredibly much. So
Yeah,
on
I've
on your
tried
end.
not to. I've tried not to watch
Yeah, I get I
many
am
of them. Like,
I'm not looking for these things on purpose, you know. Uh,
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't
I mean, I think the most. Let me just going to close the door here. I don't want my kids to hear anything.
yes, of course.
Like I said, I haven't seen many of them. I try not to watch them. I think it's not
Hmm.
good for the soul.
No,
I
no,
don't.
it's not. It's not.
Um, but to me, the most disturbing one that I saw was it wasn't even a Jew. It was a Thai worker, from Thailand.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
18 of them were
Thai,
killed.
yeah, I mean, a number of killed, a number of
Yeah,
kidnapped, and
agricultural workers.
yes, and this was a scene of a Thai person, and he's all bloody, but he's still alive. He's still conscious because his arms are moving, and he's like, lying on his back. And the video, they're talking. Someone says, "Bring me a knife, bring me a knife," and they didn't have a knife, but they had a garden tool, like a hoe, with a
Okay.
flat thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it wasn't even a Hamas person; it was a civilian, just like a regular guy in a t-shirt and jeans, and he's screaming over and over, "Allah Akbar," and just hacking away and hitting him in the face, hitting him in the neck, trying to cut his head off, and he's still alive. Like with every hit, the guy's arms like go up a little bit, and I don't know. To me, that was just so distressing that I'm sure that's not the worst of what happened. I'm sure it's not, but of the videos that I saw, to me, that was just like
Hmm.
very, very
Hmm.
disturbing. And again, like I said before, as much of my family that was killed in the Holocaust, and I'm very, very much, hate the Nazis and all of that, but I couldn't imagine being driven to that level of, just violence and butchery. I don't know. I don't know. It's very, very, it's very distressing. And one of the things that you wrote in a different tweet, which you were, made your list of the most outrageous pro-Israeli things that were
Yeah, that
said.
was today. That was today.
Right. As I saw that, and you quoted Douglas Murray, who's not Jewish or anything, and he said that like he made a comparison to the Nazis, and he said like the Nazis at least had to get themselves drunk, and
Hmm.
I mean their conscience couldn't
Hmm.
handle it. That's why they had to gas the Jews, was because
Hmm.
the soldiers couldn't continue
Yeah, they were
shooting.
too affected.
It was too affected. And he said, whereas over here, they're and the Nazis
Yeah,
like
they're
tried
enjoying
to
it. Yeah.
hide. They tried to hide their atrocities. They tried to cover it up. And here you have people who are reveling it and enjoying it and publicizing it. I do think that that's a fair point. I do think that that's a fair,
Well,
to us.
I actually read quite a lot about the Holocaust, and it haunts me. But there were some Nazis who
Of
really
course, there were.
enjoyed what they were
Of
doing.
course, the Stigweller
Like
group and all that.
guys who
Of
took it
course.
so far that the SS criticized them because they took it
Yes,
so.
yes. There was that one guy. He had a whole unit of released prisoners from a psychiatric ward, and yeah, they did the most
Yeah.
horrific things.
Mm.
But I think the reason that he wrote that, and it wasn't to make the Nazis look good or sound better, but I think his point is that like in our society nowadays, right, we take it for granted that like the Nazis are the worst of the worst, right? They did like the worst possible atrocities, and they went through with it, and they killed 6 million Jews, 3 million Polish people, every country they went through, and they just ravaged every single country. And to
Well,
point out that they're
to be exact, like they were nicer in the West, let's say.
Yeah,
The
yes,
worst things happened in
the
the east,
East,
but
yes,
yes,
yeah, yes.
generally, yeah, I agree.
Yes, and to point out that, like, even them, even they sort of, you could see that at least there was a conscience over there. There was something there that bothered them about what they were doing to some
Yeah,
degree,
yeah,
and to
yeah.
contrast
I
that with what we're dealing with today.
my favorite. It's a weird word, but my favorite Nazi is this Albert Speer guy, and he seems to have had this kind of psychological trick to willingly not know to the point that he didn't know but actually could have known. Like, it's really strange psychological
Yes,
game, but yeah, it
yes.
shows that there is something like a conscience there at least.
Yes, and I think, and many of them committed suicide, and so I
Hmm.
think his point was just to sort of, to just make that point to people. To look what we're dealing with here. Look at the level of depraved human beings that we're dealing with. That these are people that did things on the level of the Nazis, but without any conscience,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
proudly and happily and wanting everyone to see. I'm sure you saw that video of the person who he called his father and he said, Dad, I killed 10 Jews, 10 Jews I
You
killed.
you told me about that, I think.
Like, it's
But
crazy.
I think in our Western mentality there's this idea that hurt people hurt others. So the reflex is, what happened to that person that he's able to do that? Like, what horrific things were done to that person that he became like that? But I think there you disagree. That
Uh,
nothing so horrible happened to that person to explain his behavior now,
Yeah,
right?
correct. Whereas again, I keep going back to 1929 and all the other massacres that happened. I think that as Western people, we don't relate to the mindset of a culture that is more barbaric than we are. There's such a thing as cultures that are more barbaric, right? And I,
Yeah,
I,
but
I
you understand that this sounds dangerous. Like, you are taking 2 million people and saying that their culture is barbaric.
no, I'm not saying all of them are. I'm saying that
But
there is such a
you are
thing as.
mentioning their culture, so
But if you speak to people who were in Afghanistan, who fought in Afghanistan also, and you speak to, I don't know if you know any of the, people, I don't know if Belgium sent people there or not, but
yeah, yeah.
I
Not to
spoke to
Iraq, but
somebody,
to Afghanistan. The Belgian army sent
I
some
spoke to
guys.
somebody from Poland who was there, who served, and I've spoken to some Americans who served, and they say the same things. They say just, there's a certain culture of, a different sense of value to human life, a certain
Oh,
different sense of
but
value to suffering that is, you know,
specifically when we're talking about Afghanistan, what really shocked me is that some of these Taliban leaders like to chain young boys to their beds and use them as sex slaves. Like, what the hell is that?
so yeah, all sorts of crazy, crazy stuff that I think Western minds, thank God, Western minds don't relate to this thing in the same way. So I'm not painting the entire culture, not at all. At the same time, I think that it's foolish to ignore that Western people can't necessarily understand the mindset of everybody on the planet,
Mhm,
and not everybody
mhm,
does think the same way
mhm,
that we do, and not
mhm,
everybody does
mhm.
value the same things that we do. And I think it's important to
And then
recognize that.
sorry again for interrupting. Um, then how do you explain all these videos with Americans and Jewish and non-Jewish, and they visit Gaza or they visit Palestine and they come back and, oh, these are the nicest people ever, and they're so
I'm sure there
generous,
are
and
many of them that
we are
are
so
about that, because
welcome there. And
there's every different type of person, for
I also
sure.
felt incredibly welcome there.
I told you also the Arabs that I know that live in Israel that are here. They're wonderful, wonderful people. I sent you that video. I
Mhm.
think I
Yeah,
sent you
I
on
watched it.
WhatsApp
I watched it.
of those
Right,
four
they
Arabs that
came to
saved that
help. Yeah,
woman. And oh yeah,
no,
there's no question about it.
totally peaceful
Of
guys.
course, 100%. I'm not.
So,
That's what I'm saying. I'm not
but
painting
what do you mean by their culture then?
the jihadi culture, the culture of people that are focused on jihad and focused on the violent way of living, and who only speak the
And
language of violence.
what if this is a very vocal minority?
It could be that it is. It could be. That's what I'm saying. I'm not. But his point, Douglas Murray, the point that he was making is that the people who carried out these atrocities are not like us. That's what he was
Mhm.
trying to say with that tweet. that they're not like us. They're not. And
Mhm.
just like you just said, even among the Nazis, there were a fringe
Yeah.
group who were beyond and did things that were, way above and beyond, that didn't care, right? That's even in the Nazis, there was also a range of people. But he was saying that the people that we're dealing with, the people that are committed to this fight, the people that are committed to the struggle, who are the ones that are committing these atrocities, they're not like you and me. They're not.
Mhm.
And again, it's not all of them. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that we should bomb all of them. God
Mhm.
forbid. That's not what we're saying. But to also think that maybe these are people that